Good evening, all of my scribes, my kingdom writers, kingdom entrepreneurs. Welcome to Scribe Arise Live. This is our fifth night on. I had challenged myself to go on live every day for the rest of February. So here I am on my fifth night. We have been talking about 5 things that every writer should do before they start actually writing their manuscripts. And today we're going to talk about the importance of clarifying your message before you get into that book. So we've already talked about the importance of your mission, the importance of knowing your market. Last night we talked about the importance of your metron, your sphere of influence, your measure of influence within that sphere. And so today we're going to talk about your message. If this is your first time watching me, I am Deborah Gaston. I'm the owner of Deborah Gaston LLC and Total Concept Publishing. I serve kingdom writers, ministry leaders, and kingdom entrepreneurs. I do that by helping them share their story, their expertise, their wisdom, their revelation in a book by guiding them through the entire writing and self-publishing process so that they can use that book to build a business or to grow a ministry, to leave a legacy, to impact lives, and to create streams of income as well. One of the things that the Lord spoke to me about the middle of last year is that I am to raise up scribes that will write the books that change mindsets, shift culture, and advance God's kingdom in their sphere of influence. So again, we talked this week already about knowing your mission, your why, that your why is going to be your North Star that can keep you focused. And your why is 2 parts. It has to do with what the book will do for your reader and what the book will do for you. Once the book is finished, once the book is out there, what is the overall purpose and how does it connect? If you're in ministry, or you're in business particularly, how does that connect to your overall purpose, your God-given call, purpose, and assignment in this particular season? Then we talked about the importance of knowing your market. Your book is not for everyone. You have to be very specific about who you are writing for, who you are writing to. When you sit to write, you want to make sure that you want to write as if you're having a conversation with one person. And who is that person? And last night we talked about your metron. Metron is just a Greek word that means sphere of influence or measure. The word actually means measure, your measure of influence. Not only is your book not for everybody, but it is not for every place. God has assigned us to specific spheres and the people within those spheres to reach with our message. And so you want to be clear which of the 7 spheres or mountains of social or cultural influence that you have been called to impact. So now that we've gotten that, we're clear on the message, the market, and the metron, we want to clarify our message. Know your what. So if I go back, I would say your mission is your why, your market is your who, your metron is your where, and now we're talking about your message, your what. I'm going to share a little story with you. I was working with a gentleman not long ago, about a year or so ago, and he wanted to write a book, particularly kind of giving his journey to overcoming PTSD. He is a Vietnam War veteran and came back home from the war and had a lot of issues with not knowing when he came back, there was no name for it, PTSD. And so that was the focus. When we sat down to talk, he said that was the goal of the book. And there were a lot of notes and some other things that I had that didn't seem to point to that goal. The more I talked to him, even though that was what he wanted the book to be about, the more I talked to him, the more I interviewed him, I recognized that PTSD was a part of a larger story that I believed was his message to the world, because this man absolutely understood the grace of God, the hand of God that had been on his life, not just journeying through PTSD, but all of his life. So then we were able to wrap the PTSD story within a larger framework. And I believe that it made for a more powerful book. You have to be clear on what your book is about. You have to be clear on your message. You cannot, if I usually say this, if I ask you, what is your book about? And you take 5 minutes to tell me, then you're not clear. You should be able to tell me in two, no more than three. The book is about this, it is for who it's for, and what it will accomplish for your reader. So let's talk a little bit about that. If you've been watching, I have to think that if you've been watching this, that you're probably somewhere in the process. And you may already have an idea of what your book is about. You may still be bouncing some ideas around in your head, some topics that you want to write about. But now that you've identified, hopefully, you've identified your purpose, you've identified your target audience, you have a better idea of the message you want and need to convey. Even if you're clear about your book's message or the subject matter, you want to make sure that you've narrowed it down to something that you can cover in 30,000 words or no more than 50,000 words. Again, you're not trying to cover everything. You want to make sure that it is concise. You whittle it down into a single, cohesive core idea. You want to make sure that you've narrowed it down to something that meets the needs of your reader, accomplishes your overall goal, and is manageable in one book. Again, you want to keep the book not long at all. One, most of us have in this day and age, want quick. So if you've got a 200-page, 250-page book, the chances of somebody picking up and reading it may be slim to none. So you want to keep it. I usually tell people somewhere between 100, no more than 160 pages and a 6x9 trim. So you want to make sure that you've whittled your topic down, that it can be handled within that framework. All right, the important thing to remember is that everything in your book must serve the reader. Doesn't matter if you think it's a cute story, doesn't matter if it impacted you greatly. If it doesn't serve the reader, if it doesn't point to the main objective of the book, your purpose, your why, then it doesn't belong in your book. Every story, every fact, every detail, every example that you need has to point to the overall goal. And it has to be able to be something that the reader can connect to. You're not writing for yourself. I say the first draft is for you, but when you go back to revise, it's not about you at all. It's about what will serve the reader. You're not just including what you find interesting. This is not about you. It's really about helping your reader get the point that you have for them. There's a rule of thumb, seems logical, seems sensible, and that is to write what you know. You may begin with something that does, and if this is your first book, you may want to begin with something that doesn't require a whole lot of research. I am an English teacher. I was an English teacher. There are certain things I wouldn't write a math book. I wouldn't try to teach somebody how to do something I've never done or I'd have to do extensive research on. So you want to stick with what you know. And that's, of course, Holy Spirit is guiding you to do some research. But that first book, don't try to do something that's going to require you to study and read a whole lot of other information. You're going to have to do research, most likely, but you don't want to write a book that's going to require extensive research. The easiest things for you to write about, your passion. We talked about that on Tuesday. A personal experience that taught you a powerful lesson or a big transformation in your life. You want to write about an area of expertise. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a coach, those things that you really know something about and you're trying to establish yourself as an authority in that field, that's what you want to write about. You want to write about something that disturbs you, something that really bothers you. I think I shared that I had a client who wrote a book concerning abuse, particularly childhood abuse, because that was a thing that was disturbing her. How the court system treated children that had been abused, at least back in the time that she was trying to get help for her child. And you may want to write about a revelation or some insight that will change how your readers think. Again, you can write about a passion, a personal experience that taught you a powerful lesson or that transformed you, an area of expertise, something that disturbs you, a revelation or insight or wisdom that will change how your readers think because it changed how you think. Because you're not limited to those, the ideas are limitless. You just have to tap into the one that is calling you and that serves you well. And a lot of times I want to tell first time authors, you want to write the book. Your first book should be something that you want to be known for. That's why you see business owners writing about how they grew their business or teaching some aspect of their business because that's what they want to be known for. If I'm going to use this to grow my ministry or to grow a business, then that's the first book that I should write. One of the ways that you can do this is just simply list all the possibilities. I usually have people just brainstorm. Don't overthink it. You tend to overthink. You don't want to overthink it, and don't even censor yourself. If it comes to mind, write it down. It's possible. It could be an idea. Now, this is for people who are not sure what they want to write about. You want to ask yourself, which one is a passion? Which one of these ideas falls within my area of expertise or um, experience? Which ones align most closely with the overall purpose of the book and the overall purpose in my life? And the which ones are going to need extensive research. And once you've kind of looked over your answers, you want to see if your topics fall into more than one area. That may be an indicator that that's the book you need to work on first. The other thing I like to, because we're kingdom citizens, kingdom authors, is to consider your grace space. Your grace space, because we are people of faith, there is yet another way that will determine the topic or theme for our book. That is one that is in your grace space. I define your grace space as where your identity and your calling and your gifting and your talents and your purpose all kind of intersect. You are operating and you are writing in a space that feels like, I'm home. I know this is what I'm supposed to do, because even though it may not necessarily be easy to write the book, it's not laborious to write it because everything is working together. You've ever been in those places where you're teaching? For me, it's being able to teach and to use the writing and to use the prophetic gift in me and to use the use worship in me and all of those things that kind of intersect at one point. And I say, yeah, this is what I was born to do. That is one of the that may indicate what your book should be about. Now, again, as you looked over your list of possible topics, this is what you want to do. Which one of these topics is Holy Spirit breathing on now? You may have a lot of ideas for a book. We all have multiple stories that we could tell. But which one do you really sense Holy Spirit breathing on now? Which one are you most likely to complete? Which one will be most effortless for you to write? Which one do you think you'll enjoy writing? And then which one is speaking to your heart in this moment? So you want to be clear. If you find something that is right in your grace space, then that's probably going to be it. Once you have decided on that, then you want to refine your message. You really want to refine it. Again, you are not trying to cover everything that you know about a subject matter. You're not trying to move your reader from point A to point Z, point C, or even point C. If you get them to make just one step in the right direction, that's a huge accomplishment. I was on, I think it was Clubhouse, sometime last year, and there was someone in the room, and she was working on a book, and she said, she wanted to write a book about being homeless, from being homeless, and work getting herself together. She was a PhD dropout. She experienced homelessness. She experienced abuse, and she wanted to write a book about that. Um, and still achieving her goals, overcoming all of those obstacles to achieve her goal of getting her PhD. She wanted to write it for young adults, 18 to 25, I think she said. She said she had started working on it and she had a Google Doc of 800 pages. And I know this story is going to be all over the place because that is far too many. And this was just a first draft. Um, I was overwhelmed just listening to her. And I knew that if she hadn't zeroed in on the real message of the book, not only would she be confused and have a difficult time writing the book, but her readers were going to be confused as well because she needed to clarify a singular message. Now, hear me when I say a singular message. I know there are multiple themes in books, but most people that write have an overall arching theme or subject matter that they're trying to cover. Excuse me. So she may have been really fascinated by that story. And it sounded like it was a great idea for a screenplay, but it was too broad, too vague, too long, especially for a nonfiction book. And as I said, she would get overwhelmed trying to write it, and her audience would get lost trying to read it. I cannot emphasize this enough, y'all. You have to clarify and refine your message. You are not sharing your entire life story in a book. You're not sharing everything you know on a given topic in one book. You're sharing a slice. A slice. You don't want to go too broad. You don't want to cover too much. Just what your audience, your reader, your target reader, your ideal reader needs to get in order to change or to solve a problem or to think differently. Narrow your topic down. To say that you're writing a book on parenting is too broad. And this goes back to, again, when we're talking about knowing your audience as well. What aspect of parenting are you trying to cover in the book? I'm writing a book on parenting. That is so vast. You have to narrow it down to something that you can easily cover in 130 pages. So you're going to have to know what aspect of parenting are you trying to cover? Who is your audience and what do they specifically need? Are we talking about parenting little people? Are we talking about how to kind of still parent your adult children? Are we talking about those crazy preteen adolescent years and how to handle those years? Are we talking about how to discipline? Are we talking about how to teach them independence? Are we talking? There's a variety of ways that you want to address the subject of parenting. So you have to narrow it down. This is the question you want to answer. What is the single overall message you want to communicate with your reader? What is the big aha by the end of the book? Again, while multiple themes will emerge from your book, you're focusing on a central idea. Again, you're not telling your whole life story. You're sharing a slice. You only want to share the aspects of your story that reflect the book's purpose. So if it doesn't fit, Don't put it in. I was working with a gentleman a few years ago, and he was writing again about grew up in a very dysfunctional family, very dysfunctional and abusive family. And his book, the point of the book was, despite how his home life was, God had always managed to bring people into his life that were able to bring some kind of balance. And as a result, he grew up to be not a statistic but a very successful man, and he wanted to convey that in the book. And for like 3 or 4 pages, he just goes on, when he was like 5 years old, when John F. Kennedy died. And he just went on and on and on about the funeral. And I'm asking him, why is this in here? And he says, because I was so moved by it. And I thought, okay, I was moved by it too. I was 9 years old. I don't even know how you remember all of these details at 5, but that's another story. So, but what does this have to do with the overall purpose of the book? And it took him a minute to see that I'm not just including stories because they touch me or I like them. I have to include stories and aspects of my life that tie to the overall purpose of the book. You're not writing an autobiography. You're writing something that your readers need that will help them change or think differently or know how to do something that they couldn't do before. All right. So you want to make sure it's something they can grab hold of simply and easily. Ask yourself, how deep can you go with one singular message? And then you want to tighten that up even more. Once you've done that, the next key is to decide what relevant information needs to be included in your book that will help move your reader to the place you want them to be at the end of the by the end of the book. And we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. We're gonna talk about mapping. But again, if you're not sure on your topic, then you want to do some brainstorming and then ask those questions. Which one do I know the most about? Which one am I most likely to finish? Which one will I enjoy writing about? Which one needs the least amount of research? Which one is really speaking to my heart right now? Which one is the Holy Spirit breathing on right now? And then do some free writing. Free writing is just simply writing everything, not thinking about it, not overthinking. You want to free write. We call it stream of conscious writing, where you're just generating ideas and thoughts freely. It's not for anybody but you to see, and you're going to get everything out that you need, and then sit through it to see what needs to go in your book. You don't want to overthink it. You just want to write. So grab a sheet of paper when we get off of this call. Grab a sheet of paper, put your topic of the subject matter of your book across the top of that page, and then just free write everything that you know about that subject. What we're going to do is go back and then see what things you need to include in the book. What does your reader need in order to accomplish the overall goal? Not what you like, not what moves you, not what you think is funny, but what your reader needs. Okay? So you're going to write, don't judge, don't overthink, don't censor, just free write. It's not about punctuation, it's not about spelling, it's not about any of those things. Cast that stuff to the side and just write. Then go back and read it. And you want to time it. Set a timer for like 5 to 10 minutes, no more than 10 minutes, and just write everything that you know about that particular topic and see what emerges. And then join me tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And we'll talk about mapping your book. Now that you know your mission, you know your why, you know your market, you know your who, you know your metron, your where, you're getting clear. If you're not clear, you'll be clearer on your message. You've clarified it and refined it. So now we're going to map out the journey you're taking your reader on. And I like to say mapping I don't want to say outline because outline makes people go, "Oh, I got to outline a book." It's not that. It's not that difficult. It's not that heavy. So join me tomorrow. We'll talk a little bit about mapping your story out. Have a great night, scribe writers. If you are ready to tell your story and you need some help, and I think we all need some help, I would be so glad to help you on your journey. You can just go to my website, deborahgasson.com/book, and schedule a time to meet with me. There it is at the bottom of the screen. Just and we can talk about your book and all the possibilities that await you as a published author. I'm excited about this season for the scribes and kingdom authors that God is raising up in this time to take their stand in each of the spheres of influence and to change the world with their books. See you tomorrow.